Good morning. It is November 14th, 2024. My name is Kurt Garner, and I am lucky enough to be here today with John Manke to tell his sound story. John, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Now, I am currently in St. Louis, Missouri. Where are you located?
I'm located in Watertown, Wisconsin.
Watertown, Wisconsin. So does that make you a Packers fan?
Of course,
Of course. How do we feel about the Packers so far this year?
I can only hope.
But no Chicago Bears for you then, huh?
No way.
Me neither. We do have that in common. So we're gonna just give you an opportunity to tell your story a little bit, and we're gonna go all the way back to the beginning. Tell me when you were born, John.
I was born July 12th of 1941. I was
July.
born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay, born 1941 in Wisconsin. And at the time, I you had some sisters, correct?
Five sisters.
Five sisters. Were you the only boy?
Correct.
Were you first? Were you in the middle? Were you the baby of the family?
I was the second last.
Second to last.
My youngest sister was a surprise package.
Ah, okay. So, I know memories, especially going back that far, can be a little tough. Go back as far as you can remember. What do you remember about growing up in the early and mid 40s? Tell me a little bit about your childhood.
Well, when I was younger, I had babysitters. I can remember the Haverkams, the Sabanskis, the Johansons, and they all babysat for me when I was a little kid. I can remember being on the walker. You can walk with your feet and walk around. I remember that. So my memories go quite far back.
All right. And I was reading a little bit about what it was like at your house with you and the five sisters. Um, Both of your parents worked full time?
Correct.
Were you close with your family? Were you close to your parents? Was it a loving, nurturing family
It was a
relationship?
good family. We were all raised to be independent. The idea was if anything would happen to either parent, we could be independent and survive.
And from what I was reading about you, it sounds like both you and your sisters, you had quite a bit of responsibility even at a younger age. You did a lot of the cooking, the cleaning. Tell me a little bit about kind of some of that workload that you and your sisters took on as children.
Well, I had to scrub floors. I had to clean the bathroom. I had to scrub the steps. I had to learn how to cook, how to sew, how to wash clothes. And whatever the girls did, I had to learn. We each took our turn. My mother did not cook that many meals. My dad would always prepare a meal when he worked second shift. He had pea soup. He had all different kinds of meals that he'd make, and then in a big pot like that. And the thing is, my dad was an excellent cook. My mother made nice beef. It tasted like shoe leather.
I read that. I read that your dad could cook a piece of meat, but mom's got a little tough, huh?
You better believe it.
So you did some cooking then.
Yes,
Did you have a specialty? Did you have something that you would cook
my
consistently?
favorite food was corn on the cob.
Corn on the cob.
Yeah,
So,
but I learned to make other dishes. And then later, when I was delivering mail, I ate 5 years in the firehouse, and I learned extra cooking details. Like one example is You take your frozen vegetable and you add, if you have artificial sugar, you use 2 packets to a pound of vegetables, and it will taste exactly like you pulled it out of the garden the same day.
Really?
Honest. Try it yourself, and you're see. My dad had a recipe for corn that I copied, and that is a big pot of water. You put one, two, or whatever dozen corn you want in there. You put about 2 cups of sugar, and you put about eighth of a cup or more of salt, and you bring it to a boil. And then you turn off the gas and cover it and let it sit for a couple of hours. And that corn is so good that you can eat it without salt or butter.
Wow. Do you still incorporate any of these recipes today? Do you still make this?
And now I don't cook it over here.
Okay.
But at home, I always had, they were teasing me at the farmer's market because every week I'd buy a dozen corn and I'd make a whole batch. And thing is, anyone who tried my corn loved it. And the recipe's over 100 years old.
Wow. So did you enjoy the the cooking chores that you and your sisters did? Was that enjoyable for
Yeah,
you?
we had the evening meal we had to make, and if you were on lunchtime, or usually my dad had something made. So, but otherwise we made our own lunches. When I was a kid, I could eat uh, tomatoes by the basketful. Now I'm sensitive to vitamin C. So
Okay.
anytime I have one of those acidy ones, like pineapple, like orange, or yeah, my mouth gets all full of sores.
Ah, I
So I
see.
can't have any. I'm not allergic, but
But sensitive to it.
very sensitive.
Were you a picky eater as a kid?
Yes and no. Generally, if the food was put in front of you, you ate it.
Sure. And that's kind of why I was asking that question is, you
Yeah.
know, I was a teacher for some years and you'd see these little kids who were picky eaters. And I would imagine growing up in the 40s, it was either eat what was put in front of you or perhaps you didn't eat.
And if you argued or laughed at the table, you're sent out of the room.
Very different from today, huh?
Yeah.
So tell me about your sisters. You had five sisters. You had one that was younger and four that were older.
Yeah.
Tell me about your sisters.
Joanne, the oldest, she's dead now. Um, she was like a little mother to all of us, and she was the leader of the pack. A sister, Jean, number two, was a little feisty because I, rumor had it she told the principal to go to hell at Lutheran High School.
Uh-oh.
So I mean, there's the rumors. And then she had to transfer out of there, and she went to Bayview High School, where Joanne went to Lutheran High School. And Jean went until she got a spell.
Did the older sisters pick on you at all? Were you the subject of friendly
Yeah,
bullying? Yeah.
yeah, indeed.
Um, Let me ask you this. Now, you and your sisters, you did a lot of cooking, the cleaning, you learned to sew very early. Um, as you got older, was that kind of thing that your parents instilled in you? Were you grateful for that? Do you feel like you learned like
Yes,
a work ethic at a young age?
yeah. When my dad died, I was independent. When my mother died, again, I was married and had my own family.
Okay,
So
so I saw that you played quite a bit of softball as an adult.
I
Did you
played
play?
as a kid too.
Oh, that's was going to be my question. Were you into sports as a kid? I know you said you played a lot of hide and seek with the
Um,
neighbors and
my mother and dad were actually second cousins.
okay.
Now you may laugh at this. My grandfather and his brother uh, lived next door to each other. Okay, my grandfather's brother married the sister of my mother's mother,
Okay.
so they were related that way. You had the connection between the Mankeys, then you had the Denson family. The Denson, August Denson, all of the great grandparents came from the area of Stettin, Germany. No, I'm not sure it was a city, but it was near Stettin. The the Kepke family, I don't know too much about, except they were in the grocery business. Uh, August Denson, he came to the town of Herman in Dodge County. And there he moved to Bayview, and Bayview he built basements. And the basement, rumor was the walls were a foot and a half thick. That's typical for a Kashub, actually. I don't know if he was one. I have to guess that he could have been a Kashub because they lived in that region.
Got
Okay.
it.
And he had 10 children. And the Denson family is the connection of all the relation. And so that's why I say my mother's first cousin and my dad's first cousin were the same.
Got it. I'm following you.
Shared them in common.
Yeah.
My mother grew up in Bayview, and Fred Schumacher was he came over. He raised a family supposedly in Janesville, Wisconsin. He went to St. Louis, Missouri to fight in the German regiment in the Civil War. After the Civil War, he came to Bayview. He married a widow, and he worked in the blast furnace of the Bayview Rolling Mill. All the time he lived, he never spoke English. He spoke German. My parents, when they went to grade school, they learned German too. That was how the schools were back
Hmm.
in the days. Well, anyway, then you go to the Schumacher family. Um, it was Fred Schumacher was the one who was a Civil War in that. And his son Otto was my grandfather, and they lived in a building, and next door was a store. And my grandfather had a store. In roughly 1922 or 23, he gave up the store and it became real estate and insurance. And that's where my mother learned the insurance business from her dad.
Okay.
Uh, he her dad died about 2 months after I was born, but he was an alcoholic. My grandfather on my dad's side was alcoholic. The Manke family had greenhouses. Florist Avenue is named after August Manke. He used to own the land from Latonia to 35th from florist to mill. That was all family land. It was heavy on greenhouses. And when they built Florist Avenue, they wanted to name it after him. Supposedly, he said, "No, I won't have my name on the street." So they named it after his occupation, florist
Ah,
houses. And then later on, my grandfather, well, but he was a drinker, and he he gave up the greenhouses. And his part of the greenhouses were torn down. And then my dad used to go up there and grow crops on that land beside growing on our land. So we have extra food for the family. And
okay.
I can remember when I was a kid, I was a lot driving lessons from my dad and drove on family land without going on the streets. So you get an idea. But my mother would never let me drive officially because it would go on her insurance.
Ah, yeah. So, going back to
Sports.
you
Uh,
played you played a lot of softball with friends and neighbors, and I obviously know about hide and seek, but there was something you said you played on there that I hadn't heard before, and I wanted to ask you about it. Tell me about this tin can alley.
oh, we used to, it's an old game. Now, I forget all the rules, but uh, you had a can, you kick it, and then the person who was it would have to find you. And as he found each one, you had to come out and stay until, and then the next person got the assignment that way.
Man, you see kids these days and you think about what they do to entertain themselves and now there's so much on the
We didn't
screen.
have to, we didn't have TV till after 47.
Yeah, so you probably spent all of your time outside playing and I kind of hear the old thing about you came home at dark. Was that your situation? You would play all day until the sunlight was gone?
Yeah, we
Very
come
nice.
home with meals.
Okay. So you went to Bayview High School in
Correct.
Milwaukee. And if you were born in 41, you maybe graduated in what, 50,
59.
59? Tell me about your schooling experience. Were you a good student?
Well, I was put I got special classes for advanced people, special biology. I don't remember what other special classes I had because I think I was considered more advanced than the regular thing. But what I had is after in the first year of high school, I started volunteering for the movie crew or really well projection crew. By the first year, I was assistant manager, and then I was manager. And for the rest of my school, I was on the official, what do you call it, an official of the crew. I helped organize everything. I would assign who got what films. I would make sure the equipment went from room to room. And then because I took German, some of my friends from German class were in my projection crew, and I put a note in there in German. Other times, we say, pick up this equipment from this room and take it to this room because we had to share equipment sometimes. But from the uh, after the first year, I never had to go study hall.
Yeah, I saw that in the notes. I was going to say, hey, it got you out of study hall.
Yeah, and then the vice principal, the guy that became vice principal later, after my time, um, he had the office in the same. what do you call it, attached to where I was. So I had nothing to hide. I could do my homework in that office. And I was free to walk the halls when the other people weren't.
Ooh, you had
Uh,
some special privileges, huh?
Yeah, I had privilege to go in to get the key to the auditorium upstairs, and I ran the projection crew. Or, what do you call it, the big projector that you have in a theater with the carbon arcs? I ran that one. Whenever the school had a special movie, I show it. At lunchtime, I used to show the movies. And sometimes I'm like a little wild. I did a biology film on dissecting frogs. Lunchtime.
So then also during high school, you worked as a doorman at the YWCA, correct?
Yes,
So, um, did you, was that your first like paying job?
I believe so.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about that. You said, and I don't know if I can pronounce this word. I'm gonna try it though.
The Terpsichorean Club.
Oh, I was Terpsichorean Club at the Thursday
Uh,
night dance. So what was your responsibility there? Just working the door?
yeah, and then my sister and the future husband were president and vice president of the club.
Okay.
So that's how I got in there.
If you don't mind me asking, I just ask this not to be too personal, but just to kind of compare nowadays with, back in the 50s. Do you remember what you were getting paid to work the door at the YWCA?
Minimum.
Minimum as would it be like I don't even know what minimum wage would have been back then. Was it a couple
I don't
bucks
remember
less?
either.
Don't
But then
remember.
I also, uh, a friend from the club, he ran the bowling alley downstairs. And so I was setting pins.
Okay. So you kept yourself pretty busy with some things, huh?
Yeah. And then one guy was a real wild bowler. He'd always shoot that ball so hard and the pins would fly out of the alley. So sometimes we sneaked them. We put the pins in the rack before we dropped it. We took out the middle pin.
You little rascal. Uh, did you now you said your sister, the rumor had it that she got herself in a little trouble by saying something she shouldn't have at the
Yeah,
school.
because my dad had to take her to school.
Did
And
you
I
get
stopped.
yourself in any trouble or were you well behaved and kind of kept your nose clean?
I kept my nose clean. But for her, she and another girl with the same last name but a different spelling of it, the two were in the vice principal's office so often that they were like secretaries.
Oh, that's funny. So then high school ends for you. You graduate in 59, and then you're off into the US Navy, correct?
Correct.
Tell me about your
My
experience.
lack of coordination, I I just I didn't have sports, so I was uncoordinated. My mother's worry was I might be a hemophiliac because of the fact that they were cousins, but that never happened. And I had bright red hair, and the nickname was Red.
Okay, so you were given a an honorable discharge from boot camp in December of 59, and then it says you started work at the Cornell Paperboard Company.
Yeah, they later became St. Regis Paper Company.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that.
I started off the we used to post sheets for the printer and that. And then I worked into, I transferred into the folding carton division, where we would feed the machine, and then the carton would fold and glue and be together in it. And then later on, I became a pressman. What do you call? Well, I was one of the guys running the machines mechanically.
Okay.
Um, the thing is, they changed the setting, and we now have set up and um, feed the same machines. And then on the glue, we had to make sure it had the right glue. We had to make sure it was folding properly, making sure the machines didn't jam, all that mechanics stuff. I got to the point where I went on a difficult machine, and I was a master of it. And because I was a master of the machine, they put me on other machines, so I could do that. And then I was getting fed up with the way they were operating that thing. And so I went up and I ran the warehouse by myself on second shift. And all I had to do was get so many loads out and then put them by the elevator. And the elevator guy would take them down. And the elevator guy and I were always talking and that. We got our work done.
All right. So then after that, it
Well,
says 1968, you became a letter carrier.
right. But as a clerk, um, uh, I wanted to transfer out, and and so I was driving special delivery as a clerk. In fact, one time I had a company car, and I drove by the work when they were on strike, and they were strikers were going to harass me, and they looked at me and they recognized me. What's he doing in a government car?
But you said that you ended up with a rotator cuff injury that kind of threw a wrench
Yes.
into things. What happened to the rotator cuff?
Well, I was lift. The boss made me lift very heavy samples. You weren't supposed to carry 35 pounds max. Well, those samples were heavy, and so I must have pulled the shoulder too much.
Oof.
I had a partial tear, so I had to have surgery to repair it. The doctor was Dr. Gould, uh, Guhl, and he was a pioneer in arthroscopic surgery. So he did the repair. And then it turned out that he made it too tight. And I would have had to have the surgery all over again. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, I bet.
So I ended up a permanent light duty. And then from there, I had, let's see, I learned how to type because the boss wanted me to type out his resume. He was trying to work for a promotion. So he drafted me and I learned on the go. So I was typing his stuff. I was answering the phone. I was on a table by the manager's office. Later on, I got a partner, a girl, and she was in light duty also. And she shared the duties with the phone and that. But she was a boss's favorite, and she would do favors for the boss, go shopping for the boss and all that. And her method of working was reading magazines all day,
Huh.
talking to her friends. But near the end, then now it's working. Now before the end, Al Pelzik, who was a supervisor, requested that I go to the Titonia station with him, and he would drive me back and forth to work
Yeah.
for a boss. And then um, he's told me my office was his office was my office. So I worked out of his office. And then I learned how to be a registry clerk, how to be a hot case clerk, and I had to learn the scheme for the station. But at Bayview, I already knew the scheme. But then I could do any job because I was on light duty. I could do any job. So I could case mail in a case. I could work the hot case for all the guys in the station. I could work the registry section, process all the registered special mail, and then take it out to the carriers with the keys in that. And then I did that at Titonia. At Bayview, I did the same thing.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about childhood,
Uh,
talked about some of the jobs that you've done. Now let's talk a little bit about family. Your wife, Penelope. Did you
that's
call her Penelope or Penny?
funny.
Penny. When did you meet Penny? Tell me about the first time that you remember meeting Penny.
Oh, the first time I met her, we went on a blind date. My roommate and I, we had two girls. We had uh, Polly and Penny were in, and with Al Christensen and myself. And I didn't like the way Al was treating Penny. He had Penny. I had the other girl. So I started dating Penny. And then we went, went to some dances together and we played tennis together. And we got really close. And then later on, we got married.
What year did you meet Penny? Do you remember what year you met her?
Well, I was studying computer programming at Manpower. And I met her near the end of the course.
What was it about Penny that had you so drawn to her? What was it about Penny that made her so special?
She was like me in many aspects. She we get into a discussion, with other people, and I had knowledge of history and knowledge of. I said I did a lot of book reading, and so we were discussing, and she liked it the way I was doing it, and then I with her, and so we really loved each other.
Do you remember how long after you met Penny before you asked her to marry you?
Less than a year.
Less than a year. Do you remember the day that you proposed?
Yeah, I do.
Is there a special story with it?
Well, we were in a little argument, and then we had the proposal came out. Now, I don't know if I proposed to her or she proposed to me, or neither way.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
we
what,
wanted to be together.
when was your wedding day? Do you remember the wedding date?
Yes, it was May 28th, 1966.
Okay. Was it a big wedding? Did you have a lot of friends and family there? Did you guys keep it small?
We had family and it was a small wedding. We had paid for our own wedding. In
Ooh.
other words, there was no support coming from the family. When my dad died, he was 52. At that time, he had been divorced from my mother and he had remarried my mother's first cousin.
I bet
In
mom wasn't
Tampa.
real happy with that. Mom probably wasn't happy with that situation, was she?
No,
No.
that was his old girlfriend, but also her first cousin.
Mm. So, how long after you and Penny got married did you start your family? Did you guys wait or did you start right away?
Well, we had trouble, and we went to several what do you call it, sessions where we were trying, um, you know, trying, and then we adopted Mary in
Okay.
1970. He was
Okay.
2 months old. We adopted Mark in 1974. He was born in December of 73. And then this is, we were married 4 years, adopt one. 4 more years, adopt the second one. 4 more years, surprise package.
A surprise pack. That's Kurt.
Yep.
Uh,
And
okay.
I,
So,
I, I named him after a Lutheran pastor.
oh, very nice. Okay, so your family is complete then. You have your two children that you expected and, adopted with a purpose, and then the surprise package comes along. Now that your family is complete and you're a family of five, what was life like then? Did you guys have some family traditions? Did you take any family vacations that you went on
Yes,
frequently?
yes, we did.
Where'd you guys go?
Oh, we went to Disney World. We went up to, what do you call it? Sturgeon Bay and that region up there. Sure. I'm trying to remember. So, I can't remember all the places, but we didn't go as much as you think we did.
Yeah,
With the post office, it's hard getting time off.
I'm sure. Uh, what about holidays? What were Christmases and Thanksgivings life are like at the Manke household?
Well, I hated Christmas.
Hated Christmas?
The reason for that is they work us through the butt.
Oh, you know what? I didn't even think of that. I'm sure that was a busy time for somebody in your profession.
And one time, um, because for overtime, you send us downtown to work throwing mail at the Christmas cases. And two guys came up to me and they were talking to me. The supervisor comes up and he's blasting me for talking. Well, the two guys were my uncles. They were supervisors in the post office. I'm third generation in the post office. So the uncles flashed their red badges and that supervisor wrote
Uh,
their past.
that's funny.
One uncle had one side of the case, and the other one had the other side. And then these younger supervisors, they think they know everything. They don't.
Yeah.
My, my uncle Al, he was in charge of safety for the Madison region. And then he was in charge for the whole state like that for safety for the post office.
Uh-huh.
Ralph, he was the supervisor, and well, Alvin had been a carrier at one time, but Ralph was a clerk. Then he became a supervisor, and he was known for one thing: his men loved him. He was a leader rather than a boss.
Oh, that's so important.
Well, you know the difference between a leader and a boss?
What's that?
A leader strengthens his men, encourages them, guides them, and is gentle with them. And his men always made sure did not call in sick when he was on. They respected him so much. A boss, I, I know everything. I'm God. You do what I say or else.
Yeah.
It, it may not be right, but it's my way. But I am boss. You see the difference?
Oh yeah, and I've worked. I'm 39 years old, and I was a teacher for a while. I worked in the restaurant industry a few years ago, and now I'm in the radio industry and work with SoundStory. And at my restaurant job, the boss that I had was one of the best bosses I had ever seen, and the reason was, even though he was the boss, he was not above working in the back. He would clean the toilets. He would not ask any of his employees to do something that he was not willing to do himself. And I respected that like crazy because,
That's
like
a
you said,
leader.
that's a leader. A boss would tell you to go do a task and he would
Yeah.
never touch it. A leader would kind of lead by example and show you that he's not above doing that.
Yes, indeed. And I always respected a leader. Like Al Pelzik was a leader, even though he was a boss. And I had some bosses that were good and some that were bad. In fact, one, I, I had to take a sticky to close the window, and when my coordination being not the best, I actually broke the window, and the window was right below his desk.
Mm.
Needless to say, I was doing the bad jobs from that time on. And I
Well,
worked in inner city too.
you said what?
I worked in inner city.
Okay, how was that?
Um, when I worked at Hilltop, we had a black boss who was also a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserve. I suspected he was one of the Tuskegee Flyers, but I'm not positive. And the thing is, he would yell at you, and 5 minutes later, he'd forget it. And then he was always fair with his guys. And we'd come back and we'd play sheepshead in the break room after we got the route done. He says, I'd sooner have you in here than have you in a tavern. So I mean, this is the kind of guy he was. And then when we went on the postal strike in 1970, he brought bakery for the guys on strike every day. He said, if you get a raise, I get a raise.
Ah,
But he was fair, and he was, and And every time downtown we would harass him, he'd say, well, you don't like what I'm doing? Replace me. And they were afraid because his black boss was doing good.
Well, I want to give you an opportunity, and in so many of these Sound Story interviews, we like to give our guests the opportunity to say a little bit about their kids or grandkids. So I want to start with Mary. She's 54 now. Tell me, what do you think of when you think of Mary?
She's a professional. She she's with computers. She works for a computer company. She sells computers and that, but she's on a higher level. She used to work for Johnson Controls before that, and she would travel all over the world for Johnson Controls. So she knows her stuff, and she's very smart. And her husband works for Cisco. He, the, he's a computer programmer or something higher above it. And his company handles all of the specialized computing. For example, his company was the one that did the stadium for the uh, Jets and Mets, in New Jersey.
Yeah, yeah.
Cisco did that, so they can flip the stadium from Jets one time and switch it right back, and they lay out electronics. So he's in that kind of work. So the two of them, they didn't have any kids or anything, so they're constantly traveling. They've been to Europe. They've been to the islands. They've been who knows all they travel. And
Where
they have a yacht.
where does Mary live now? Is she near where you are?
Mequon.
I'm sorry.
She lives in Mequon,
Okay.
and the two of them are pretty well off, you might say. And but both of them they love dogs. And I helped Mary with one dog, and then when he died, she replaced him with another one, and that one I don't know that well.
What about Mark? Tell me a little bit about Mark.
Mark is smart, but he's not so much for the college end of it, but he is a welder. He's one of these guys that works with his hands and his brain, and he's mechanically inclined. Right now, he does specialized welding. Um, they, uh, they do the finish processing of certain metal things. And for example, in an earlier job, he used to help them build stuff for fire engines and that. So I mean, he knows how, and then he's been called out, and they go inside and they go inside, and the weld from the inside around. So he's gifted, and then he's actually a part-time supervisor.
Okay.
He's not union.
Is Mark married? Does he have a family or
Yeah. See, Mark has three kids.
okay? What are the grandkids' names?
Well, Haley and Lauren, and then there's Nixon.
Very nice. And then Kurt, the surprise package. He's the one I think that I was talking to or getting this set up with. Tell me a little
He's
bit
an
about Kurt.
actuary.
He's an actuary.
Yes. He
Okay.
didn't have kids.
Where does he live?
In White Bear Lake, Minnesota.
Oh, very nice. Do you guys do you get a chance to see Kurt very often? I'm not sure
He
geographically how far that is.
come down for Thanksgiving. See, Mark and Tracy's house is like a hub for us all to meet.
Oh, nice. Is that where family get-togethers are? Do you guys get together for different
Yeah.
holidays or family gatherings there?
When we were younger, we after the parents died, we take turns having the Christmas at each one different house. Joanne, she married Ed in England. He was a rocket engineer,
Oh, wow.
and then he he worked for Delco Electronics, and then they married in England while he was working on a military base, and they treated him as a colonel, even though he was not in the military. When they had trouble with the guidance system, he'd be called in with rockets in it. And then they moved his division over to Goleta, California. We never knew where his job was. One day he was mad. He actually revealed what his job was. He was the head person of the division, and he was supposed to try and get the space shuttle job for his company. He was the head. I was wondering why he could come when we got together. He had no problem. He go up, get a motors, get a car. You know, no questions asked. It's because he was so high up. But he wouldn't let, let us know.
So if I'm doing my math correctly, as we sit here today, you're 83, 83 years old?
Yeah,
I want to ask you this. What would you say from your 83 years on this earth that you're most proud of?
one, that I have a wonderful family. And my kids turned out great.
That's great.
Two, I was married almost 56 years. And then she died. But the thing is, we were separated before she died. She was in the hospital so many times that the family decided to take me out of the condo, up, bring me up here. And then they brought her over here with me. And then we get two strong women, one household. They
Clashed a
clash.
little bit. Yeah.
So my wife ended up living with her niece and husband. And later on, she went to Howard Village. And then from Howard Village, she went to there's like a nursing home in Oak Creek. And the thing is, we tried getting together, but she did not. I chose a neutral site away from all the kids, but within reach of all the kids. And she said, no. If she wanted me to go down to Howard Village, and if I went down there, I'd lose all my doctors. And then I have no transportation to any doctor.
Mm.
You understand?
Hmm.
Now I can not drive anymore.
Yeah. When you look at yourself from 60 years ago when you were 20 years old, and now you think about now as you sit in your early 80s, what would you say that you know about living a happy and successful life now that maybe you didn't know when you were 20 years old?
Well, one, I became a historian. Then I had the job of uh, being in charge of the history area of the Bayview Historical Society. I was in charge for a while. Then I had class with one of the guys who was writing stories for the society. And that was that I, I noticed that there's an error in his book, some facts. Of being a researcher, I used to be able to read 100 pages an hour, memorize half what I read. And I had a lot, the whole night, a vast library. I was always reading and doing research. And brought it up to him, and he snubbed me. Later on, because I disagreed with him, they asked me to step down from my job because I was handling all I was landmark chair, and I was handling the landmarks. And so, fine, I didn't care. And then near the same time, I loved the farmer's market.
Mm.
I still love it to this day. I would sit down there, and I was like a desk sergeant in the police department. I would handle all the communications down there at the thing. I'd come in the morning. I'd make sure they all got in there, and then no one was taking the handicap spots. And then I would sit at the table, and then I'd talk to people. And being a historian, I could answer questions on the Bay Area. So and I am listed as one of the Johns down the Bayview Historical. You have John Gerda, you have John Sternkopf, you had John Utzik, you had me, you had another John. All of us were master historians. We knew the history of Bayview. I still know the history of Bayview because I can write stories and post them. We don't have any books in front of me. My books are gone. At the house, we got rid of 60 pick and save boxes full of books. Got rid of them. Some went to the State Historical Society. Some went to the UWM. Some went to the Bayview Historical Society. And some went to Friends. We left the condo. All my research material went to the Bayview Historical Society, plus some other books. Again, I had another library. And some of my books were in German, some were in English. So, and I had some books that were very rare. I had a friend at the bookstore who would always get them from the library. When they're ready to put them on microfilm, you get rid of the old books. He would get them for me. And then I had these city directories. I donated 10 of them to the Bayview Historical Society. And I covered several decades in there. And I had proof that the uh, German Revolution of 1848 started in Milwaukee. I have
Really?
evidence, and I can give you that evidence. And that is that um, the pastor Peter Grabau of Germany, he lived in uh, Mockenburg, Germany. He at the time that he was a pastor of the church there, the, the emperor or the Kaiser, or whatever you want to call him, he decided to use the Reformed Church as the Church of England, Germany. And the Lutheran guys were put in jail or condemned. At the same time, Heinrich von Rohr, Captain Heinrich von Rohr, he was drummed out of the Prussian infantry for teaching the Lutheran faith. So both of them were given a choice. You can go to jail or leave Germany. So they came. Pastor Grabel took 2,000 people and went to Buffalo, New York. Heinrich von Rohr took 2,000 people and went to Freistadt, Wisconsin, which is in Mequon-Thiensville. Okay, he formed Trinity Lutheran Church over here. Then 2 years later, they brought 4,000 people with them. If you go on the historical records, these are called the Old Lutherans. So then, but the people were having their mails censored, and they didn't like it. So they came to Milwaukee. They had a parade, marched down Wisconsin Avenue. Then they raised 3 cents per family to instigate and start the German Revolution in Germany, right here in Milwaukee. And I found 5 references to it. I found the one in the Study of the Lutheran Church. I found it in some of the old city directories in Milwaukee. They had it. And people forgot about it.
That's
But
incredible. I think I have 2 more questions for you, and one of them I want to ask. You were born in the 40s, so you've been around for 9 different decades, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, the 10s, and the 20s now. So I want to get your perspective on this. As somebody that has seen and experienced so much over the course of 83 years, how would you say the world has changed over that time for the better? And also maybe what have you seen that maybe has been a change for the worse?
well, the thing is, I like the book Left Behind. Did you ever read the series?
I have not.
You should.
Left
Uh,
Behind?
Left Behind.
Okay.
It's 2 pastors. Now, I'm not sure what denomination or what faith they are. They wrote the series, and it's supposedly the rapture occurs, and then these people have 7 years before the coming. And the thing is, the tribulation, they called it. Each step is harder and harder going on. All the things that were happening, but the things that are happening now remind me so much of that book. Seeing some of the stuff it's happening in the world. For example, America is losing its Christianity. And sooner or later, or if you follow history, it's going to happen. Something's going to happen because God does not have mercy on those who forget Him. They lose their ability that way.
Mm-hmm.
And with all these leaders, like Trump, I'm afraid is going to be another Hitler. I really think so.
Yeah, obviously, you know, at least in America, we are in one of the more divided times that we've seen in many, many, many years, and it sure is scary. There's no doubt about that.
But then, too, the rich are separating from the lower class, and the middle class is shrinking. You see all this stuff happening.
What
Then
about
crime in the street and
what
the
about on a
drugs.
what about on a positive note? What have you seen maybe that the world has improved in your opinion over the course of your years around?
Well, I would say education. I think is better. Our knowledge has increased. Our knowledge of space has increased. The knowledge of war, well, as long as there's history, there's going to be war. There's no way of avoiding it. But what you need is your faith. There's two words that describe everything. I believe. From that point on, you go with what you were taught, and you live your faith. I'm not telling you to go to any particular church. I'm just saying those two words. You are the one that's going to walk the valley of the shadow. You will walk alone. So when you go, you'll be alone. But you got to remember the day of reckoning is coming. So someday, where then another thing is you've got to respect others. You have got to be uh, gentle. In other words, don't lie. Tell the truth. What have you got to hide? Right?
Right?
We all make mistakes. We're human.
Sure.
It's a matter, do we learn from the mistakes? The government doesn't learn.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
I work for the government in the post office. I saw what the government is like. Right now, in the post office, for example, they're hiring what do you call yes men, airheads. All they know how to do is say yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir,
Oh
and
yeah.
do whatever they were told. In my uncle's days, when Ralph was involved there, he was gradually forced out because he was a leader. They didn't want leaders. If
They
you
wanted
were a
yes
leader,
man.
they phased you out.
Yeah.
They got some good airheads that would say yes, sir, and I'll do that stuff. And give me an example of one. When I worked at Upper Third, I had a vehicle, and we had a sleet storm, and I the windshield wipers did not work. I went to the supervisor. I told him this vehicle should not be driven in the sleet storm. with the wipers. And then I went to Union Steward, and Union Steward was a puppet of the boss. So I was forced to go on the route with the vehicle.
Yeah.
Then later on, they came out and brought me a different vehicle. It just gives you just a sampling of what they got there.
Yeah. Everybody thinks they know best. They don't listen, they don't learn.
One boss of mine, I had a Bayview. He says, "I am God. You got to listen to what I say, or else." And this guy was a real crackpot. But what he did, he was having sex with these girls and promoting them to supervisors.
Mm,
And then one, he made a mistake with one girl, and it caught up to him. She turned him in. Then the postal inspectors gave him a choice: resign or be fired. So he resigned. And the karma, wherever goes around comes around.
absolutely. I like to think that way as well. All right, John, my final question for you, and I think this may be perhaps the most important one of our whole conversation. Um, what message would you like to leave for Mary, for Mark, for Kurt, for your grandkids, for anybody that may watch this? These are kind of set up so that people years and years and decades down the road can watch this and learn about their grandfather, their great grandfather. What
Well,
message would you leave to anybody that may watch this?
well, the thing is, we must learn the lessons of history, and we must learn not to repeat the mistakes of the past. We are human. We're not perfect. We never will be. But we must live our lives and live in faith and pray that we can live according to His will, and pray that we can treat our family with respect and love and avoid violence at all times. I never believed in violence. When I was a kid, uh, I got into an argument with a kid, and I picked him up and threw him in the mud puddle. Next day we had a fight, and I realized that I was wrong for throwing him in the puddle, so I let him win. But you get the idea.
Hmm.
We make mistakes. How do we learn from? Keep on learning. The more we learn about history, the more we know what not to repeat.
Yeah, I mean, the famous saying goes, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, right?
Bingo. And I believe that emphatically.
Yeah. Well, I think that is all great perspective, great advice. You've seen some things, you've done some things. You're obviously a well-read and intelligent individual with what sounds like a great family. I'm happy that I was able to have this conversation with you and help you tell your story so that your kids and grandkids and years on down the road will be able to hear this and hear your words of advice and hopefully be able to make the most out of it. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, I hope I have helped. I don't know.
Well, it
Again,
has been
I make
great.
mistakes.
We all make mistakes, right?
Yeah, and see, as you can see, I had a cerebral hemorrhage
Ooh.
a couple of years back, and believe it or not, I kept all my memories.
Thank goodness for that.
My short-term memory isn't perfect anymore.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I'm me.
And that's all we can be, right?
Yeah,
All right, John. Thank you so much. It's been great to get to know you and to talk to you a little bit. Have a great afternoon.
you also.
Thank you, Kurt. Bye.